It's 8 o'clock. My name is Narayana Swami. This is lecture number 4 out of 12. I will begin with invocation. Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Ganana Tva Ganapatigam Havamahe Kavim Kavinam Upamasravastamam Jeshtarajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspata Anastrinvan Nodibhisida Sadhanam Om Sri Mahaganapataye Namaha Prano Devi Saraswati Vaje Ebirvajini Evadi Dhinama Vitriyavadu Om Sri Mahasaraswatye Namaha Triambagam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiyama Mritaad Sri Triambagam Mrityunjaya Devataye Namo Namaha Idam Vishnur Vijakrame Tredani Dade Padam Samodamasya Bhagam Surem Krishna 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 Om Bhur Bhuvassuvarom. So today's lecture, we will try to cover chapter 5 and 6. I don't know whether we will be able to cover both because the points to be discussed are on the Upanishad today. So it is a little bit more involved. So I will try to do today's lecture a little bit more slowly so that the points that we are discussing can be easily grasped. So there are several reasons for me to include this chapter on understanding the Vedas. One of the many reasons is that the main purpose of the book is to provide a detailed understanding of the Vedas, but at the same time, all the scriptural texts that have come out of the Vedas. So to obtain an overview of Upanishads, which is an important point, a part of the text that has come out of the Veda Samhita. And many other important reasons. One, of course, is to establish that Upanishad study Upanishad contains ideas and thoughts as a continuation of the Veda Samhita, as opposed to the messaging. So first, there are very many questions in the first 2 or 3 classes that are connected with the Upanishads. So I want to begin with the messaging of I'll try to discuss Upanishads in 2 or 3 aspects. The first aspect I want to begin is the messaging aspects of the Upanishads. In the first 2 or 3 classes, I talked about many of us have not had a formal education on the Vedas. Not only that, we have not had a formal education, we have also received many misinformation or erroneous information on the Vedas. So we are trying to sort out all those things. In the same manner, there is messaging on the Upanishads. The first messaging is that this implies that Veda and Vedanta are separate tracks of study. And my book, chapter 5, establishes that these are not separate tracks, but the ideas and thoughts conveyed in the Upanishads are a continuation of the ideas in the Veda Samhitas. We'll have more occasion to discuss that in our ongoing lectures. Another important aspect, and we had a few questions also in the previous sessions that I responded in the question and answer, but I will give a more detailed and formal answers to the question. The messaging Vedas are Karma Kanda and Vedanta is Jnana Kanda. This categorization has led to several misleading conclusions by many Sanatana Dharma followers. So first of all, let us try to understand, where did this classification, such a classification, come up? It is now well established in the common jargon that Vedas are Karma Kanda and Vedanta is Jnana Kanda. So if I give you the basis where this such a talk came, and then we will discuss what are the consequences of that definition. Jaimini's Purva Mimamsa, in the last class also I emphasized the Purva Mimamsa, the Mimamsa Sutras. The word Mimamsa itself means critical analysis, review, detailed analysis. So the word Purva and Uttara came later. So when Jaimini proposed them, it is just a Mimamsa Sutras. It is known as Jaimini's Mimamsa Sutras. Later on, this was assigned to Purva Mimamsa and Upanishads were assigned as Uttara Mimamsa. But at the time Jaimini proposed these sutras, it is called Jaimini's Mimamsa Sutras. Mimamsa, critically reviewed, discussed, debated, and established. So the Mimamsa Sutras established that the correct chanting of the Veda mantras as well as the correct conducting of the yajna would ensure the phala or the result of the yajna. So Purva Mimamsa is a very significant part of our yajna practice. Of course, our rishis, towards the end of the Vedic period, decided that if they are only teaching the inner meaning and the wisdom and the meditative techniques to get a mantra revealed to their initiate disciples, after a while, people may not follow those attitudes and the Veda study will not be available for posterity. So the rishis themselves established outer yajna for the commoners, about 90% of them who are pursuing different trades and all that. So Jaimini's Purva Mimamsa also has the backing from rishis. However, the Purva Mimamsa people one step further. What they said was, immediately after the Vedic period, the Veda Samhitas were there. First text that came out is Brahmanas. To understand the essence of the Vedas, the Brahmana text came. The Brahmanas, even though it talked about the yajna, what are the vessels to be utilized, what are the, how the food to be prepared, how the Vedi is to be prepared, all those details are in the Brahmanas. Along with that, Brahmanas also contain towards the end the essence of the Vedic knowledge. So the Brahmanas contained not only the details of the yajna, not how to conduct the yajna, but what are the vessels to be used, how it is to be, food has to be prepared and all that. But the Purva Mimamsa people gave the Brahmanas equal importance. In fact, they even gave more importance than Samhitas. To make the story short, Jaimini established, Purva Mimamsa and his followers established that Brahmanas are as high as the Samhitas. So even Samhitas, they give a secondary role. So Samhitas and Brahmanas together are needed for the yajnas. Badarayana, who wrote Brahma Sutras, used this because Jaimini has established Samhitas and Brahmanas or the Karmakanda are needed for the thing. And he took them together, and Jaimini established Samhitas and Brahmanas together are Karmakanda. And Vadarayana wrote Brahma Sutras to organize the ideas in the Upanishad in a more formal manner. So Vadarayana took the end parts of Brahmanas as Aranyakas, which are part of the Upanishad also. So Vadarayana, since Jaimini has established Samhitas and Brahmanas as Karmakanda, Vadarayana established the Aranyaka and Upanishads together as Jnanakanda. Then later on, Adi Shankara wrote Bhashyas on the Upanishads, and Sainacharya published the word-by-word meanings of the external word-by-word meanings for the Vedas. So they also sort of went along with this division, that Samhitas and Brahmanas are together called Karmakanda, and Aranyakas, and because Adi Shankara wrote Bhashyas on Upanishads, Vadarayana has already written Brahma Sutras. So Aranyakas, Upanishads, Brahma Sutras together, they said that this is the Jnana text, Jnanakanda, and the Samhitas and Brahmanas are the Karmakanda. Now let us see, that message has allowed commoners like this, many of us, to draw many misleading conclusions. Many misleading conclusions because it says that if there is, so Vedas or Veda Samhitas are divided into, Veda Samhitas are divided into two parts. One part discusses karma and the other part discusses jnana. That impression is drawn. Nobody says so. By the definition that Samhitas and Brahmanas are Karmakanda, one gets the impression that in the Vedas, in the Veda Samhitas, there is one part that talks about karma and the other part that talks about jnana. And the fact is that there is no such a division. The Samhitas are one continuous set of mantras. For example, Rigveda Samhita has 10,552 mantras. All divided into 10 mandalas and a number of suttas in each mandala. So there is no separation. So that is one erroneous message we draw. The second message is that Samhitas discuss only karma. And if you want to get jnana, you have to go to Upanishad. So that is the second inference being drawn because of this categorization of Karmakanda, Jnanakanda. So that also is not a fact. Every mantra, if you look at the spiritual meaning, you can get the jnana. If you leave it at the external meaning, then you can use it for the meaning related to the yajna. Now the third message is, by saying that Samhitas, the Vedas are Karmakanda and Upanishads are the Jnanakanda, one gets the impression of there is an either or choice. Either you do Karmakanda or you do Jnanakanda. Nobody, people don't see, even to study one is difficult. So no one thinks of studying both. So if that is the case, if there is nobody said there is a choice, but people draw the conclusion. Hey, Karmakanda or Jnanakanda. I want to know jnana. Who does not want to know jnana? So a natural trend to learn Jnanakanda into Upanishads. Now, so Veda studies dropped. Now, if you look for the meaning of Jnanakanda, just take the Jnanakanda, then it says that inner or esoteric portion of the Vedas that contains the true spiritual knowledge. That is the definition of Jnanakanda. So that means there is a portion. That definition itself is wrong. There is no portion like that we established. Secondly, by that definition, Jnanakanda is the esoteric portion of the Vedas where it defines the spiritual content. That again, Jnanakanda then admits that the spiritual content has come from the Vedas, which is conflicting the message by saying Vedas is Karmakanda. Now, by categorizing Samhita and Brahmanas into Karmakanda is also not in tune with that one, because the Brihadaranyaka Upanishads, all 6 chapters of the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad are the last 6 chapters of the Shatapada Brahmana, which is part of the Shukla Yajurveda. The 8 chapters of the Chandogya Upanishads are the last 8 chapters of the Chandogya Brahmana. The Ishavasya Upanishads has 18 mantras. 17 mantras are the 40th chapter of the Shukla Yajurveda. So when you look at, and the 18th mantra is a Rigveda mantra. So all the 18 mantras of Ishavasya Upanishad is either from Shukla Yajurveda or from the Rigveda. So then many mantras in the Upanishads are from the Veda Samhitas. So when all we took out this, then we must ask one more question. Adi Shankara, we all follow Adi Shankara's Bhashyas to understand the Upanishads. Adi Shankara had stated that only through Jnanam you can get moksha. And so everyone says Jnanam is needed, and so I study Jnana texts with that view. However, we must also realize that Adi Shankara has established the prerequisites for studying Jnana. And if you follow the prerequisites, some of them are very demanding. So if you think, then many of us may not even be able to follow the minimum prerequisite. One of them is burning desire for liberation. So anyone who studies Jnanakanda, according to Adi Shankara also, is with a primary purpose to achieve liberation, moksha. So in other words, what is meant by Jnanam? So when you say in the Jnana test, what is meant by Jnanam? The Jnanam used by Adi Shankara is that once you become a self-realized person, you become a Jnani. So that is the context in which Jnana, because Jnanam has many meanings. We all say Jnana text means text of knowledge. They are not knowledge. Many things can contribute to knowledge, but the Jnanam is used with the specific context of becoming a Jnani. That means the Upanishads are primarily to obtain liberation. And then, of course, the conditions of the prerequisites and the giving up of desire and pursue meditation. So many aspects are connected with that. So with all these points, we must connect with the Vedanta studies. These are all connected with the messaging. And we draw different conclusions. But I would like to establish that once we understand all these things, so we must ask, so what are these Upanishads? Upanishads are philosophical texts that contain lofty ideals, lofty ideas. And most of the books in English describe the content purely from an intellectual standpoint. And the Upanishad seers have specifically said it is not enough to understand the Brahman Atman, Prana, all these concepts intellectually, these truths must be realized. That is what Upanishads have said. And the process of realization is known as sadhana. Sadhana. Sadhana means you are practicing that. So, unfortunately, the Upanishads do not give details of the sadhana. Upanishad contain lofty ideas, but it does not describe the sadhana in detail. They give few hints in the Upanishads, and these hints are known as vidyas. In that sense, the Upanishads are guide to sadhana. Upanishads contain lofty ideas. I will take a few Upanishads to explain how these ideas give a very make us think about the lofty concepts and ideas, and very excellently stated. But these are all, those lofty ideas, they're all philosophical statements that understanding them intellectually is not adequate. One needs to do sadhana to become realized. And again, Upanishads does not describe the sadhana in detail. It only gives a few hints, and these are known as vidyas. And there are very many people, the philosophical discussions of Param Brahman, and it's only getting the intellectual understanding is needed before we do the practical aspects of it. But we must actually try to traverse the course, the sadhana, for which we have only a few hints. They are known as the vidyas. And people have tried to see, scholars have tried to see how many vidyas are mentioned in our Upanishads. And early in the 20th century, in 1916, one scholar has written 32 vidyas. And there are other scholars have attempted and found there are 30 to 37 vidyas described in Upanishads, Brahma Sutras, and the various commentaries. Most students of Upanishads at best are said to make only the theoretical attempts at understanding Brahman, Atman, Prana. But we need to spend more effort to understanding these vidyas and sadhanas. So with this background information, I will take few Upanishads to say the lofty ideas. What are the lofty ideas that we see? And then I will also provide a few hints of the vidyas that are provided in the Upanishads. I will discuss about 3 or 4 Upanishads and talk about the lofty ideas contained in those Upanishads. First is the Ishavasya Upanishads. Ishavasya Upanishads says, Ishavasya midagam sarvam yatkimja jagatyam jagad tena tyaktena bunjida ma grida kasya svidhanam. This is the very first statement of the 18 Mandra Upanishad, Ishavasya Upanishads. First word starts with Ishavasya. Ishavasyam idagam sarvam yat kinja jagatyam jagad. Ishavasyam, Isha, by Lord, Vasyam, covered or protected. Ishavasyam idagam sarvam. Everything that you see in this manifestation is covered or protected or owned by the Lord. Ishavasyamidagam sarvam yat kinja jagatyam jagad. Whatever is moving in this universal motion of motion, there is a universal motion and there are other movements happening. In all these things, everything is covered by the Lord. Tena tyaktena bunjida. Therefore, tyaktena, give up, and then bunjida, enjoy. Therefore, why therefore? Because everything is owned or covered by the Lord. So what is the question of anybody else owning? It is all owned by Lord. Even though we think, I own this house. And in fact, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa says there are a couple of occasions that the Lord smiles. And one occasion, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa says that the Lord smiles is that two brothers stand the property left by their father, and they draw a line. This side belongs to me, that side belongs to you. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa says that is the first occasion that the Lord smiles. So again, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa is trying to convey that nothing belongs to you, even though we say, I own this. And not only that, we think if we want to enjoy something, we have to take ownership of that. But Upanishad starts by saying, Tena tyaktena bunjida. Tyaktam, tyakta, give up. Therefore, you give up everything. You enjoy what you want. You take what you want. You have an enjoyment and all that, but you don't need to own it. Only then you becomes the ego, it becomes mine, and then you want to. So these are the lofty statements come. Then you need to meditate that. Tena tyaktena bunjida, ma grida kasyasidhanam. That can have various explanation. Don't covet another person's wealth, or ma grida, don't covet kasyasidhanam. Whose is wealth anyway? None of us brought the wealth. None of us will be taking it back to, with us. Therefore, leading you to start giving up, to start, no ownership is needed. So this is, there are 18 mantras, and then it goes, and of course, this mantra, how difficult to understand the mantras. The external meaning alone is not enough. We have to meditate deeper to understand all our scriptural texts. So in the same manner, the first mantra, I do not want to take the complete mantras and all that. So different scholars differ on the interpretation. This is only an 18 mantra Upanishads, but lot of disagreement between that. Some scholars say it is purely talks about renunciation, but some will say, no, this brings in a combined effort to try to find a via media between renunciation and enjoyment, between knowledge and ordinary activities. There are 51 in my book I have quoted. Professor Shastri has done research, and there were 51 commentaries, each different, running to about 1042 pages on this 18 mantra Upanishads. That is the level of our scholars have analyzed and provided details. So studying any, even if you want to study one Upanishad, if you want to collect all these, he has collected and published 20 of these commentaries based on Advaita, 6 of them on Vishishtadvaita, 12 of them on the Dvaita. So Ishavasya Upanishad itself is analyzed based, and it is again is part of the Shukla Yajurveda. I am trying to see the complete connection between Vedas and the Upanishads. This mantra is a very excellent mantra for us to meditate on, to fully understand it. Ishavasyam idagam sarvam yatkimja jagatyam jagati. Whatever in this world of motion it is moving, everything is Ishavasyam, covered or clothed or owned by the Lord. Tena tyaktena bunjida. You enjoy your life by giving up. Magrida. Do not covet another person's wealth. Kasyasvidhanam. Whose is wealth anyway? We didn't bring it. We will not be taking it back. So this Upanishad starts. This is the first. There are other mantras in that one. This is not a class on Upanishads. So I leave it at this, and we'll move to the next Upanishad. The next Upanishad that I would like to discuss is Kena Upanishad. The word Kena means by whom. Kena is a Sanskrit word, by whom. And the reason this Upanishad is called the Kena Upanishad is because it starts with, the first mantra starts with Kena. Kenedam, Keneshidam, Patati Preshidam Manaha. Kena Ishidam, Patati Preshidam Manaha. Kena Prana Pradama Praidi Yuktaha. Keneshidam Vachamimam Vadanti Chakshusrotram Kaudeno Yunakti. This is the very first mantra of the Kena Upanishad. Keneshidam Patati Preshidam Manaha. We often say, I have an idea. I got an idea. When we discuss about various things, we say, we got an idea. And the student is asking the Upanishad teacher. Upanishad is the Upa sitting near the teacher, and in a dialogue form, the teacher is instructing the students. That is why the word Upanishad has come. Many meanings, many ways you can explain Upanishad. This is one of the ways. So here is the disciple asking the teacher, Kena Ishidam Patati Preshidam Manaha. By whom willed? Kena, by whom? By whom willed this mind lands on a task? Like, for example, I say, suddenly in a discussing, hey, I have this idea. So we ask, suddenly, where did you get the idea? Who? Kena Ishidam. By whom directed or willed the mind falls on this idea? Then, Kena Prana Pradama Praidi Yuktaha. This prana, how does it breathe? By whom will it is able to breathe? Keneshidam Vachamimam Vadanti. By whom propelled is the words coming out of our mouth? Chakshusrotram Kaudeno Unakti. Which gods set our eyes and ears? So it's a major question. And of course, Upanishad teachers first say, we don't know. So the first mantra, again, is a very, very lofty idea, right? Keneshidam Padati Preshidam Manaha. How did I get that idea? Who propelled it? Who willed it? That I go to this idea. I suddenly got this idea. So that is the question posed by the Kena Upanishad. And the teacher says, well, how did we get? So, or all this we are asking, where did this mind falls on this idea? How does the prana breathe? How is this walk able to come out with the words that it wants? Chakshusrotram, how is the eye able to see? How is the ears able to hear? Who said all those things? And yet, Vacha Anabhyudidam, Yena Vak Abhyudide, Tadeva Brahmatvam Vidhi, Na Idam Tam Upasade. Similarly, the same thing. Yet, Vacha Anabhyudidam, that words cannot describe. Yet, Vacha Anabhyudidam, that words cannot describe. Yena Vak Abhyudide, by whom we are able to say the words. So again, he does not say who it is. It says, the words cannot describe this person, but by that person, that is the Antaryami. He's gradually we have to learn the lessons. That Antaryami is the one. That is the Brahman, not what you worship as an object. So these are all leading you to the knowledge aspects, how the Upanishad puts up all these things. Then, yan manasa na manute, yena mano madam, tadeva brahmatam vidhi, nedam tad yad tadupasade. Same way the answer comes. Yan manasa na manute. By your mind, you cannot conceptualize this person, but it is that person, yena mano madam. Only because of that person is behind you, you are able to draw the conclusions. So again, without saying who is that, tadeva brahmada, you learn, you understand, tat eva brahma tvam vidhi. You please understand that is Brahman. Whatever is your Antaryami as Atman, whatever you call it, Brahman, Atman, Brahman in the macrocosm, Atman in the microcosm, whichever way you take it, it doesn't matter. So every of the answer, yet vacha anabhyudidev, body is not able to say. Then similarly, yet chakshusha na pashyadi, you cannot see by the eyes this Brahman. Yena chakshugum shivashyadi, by whom, by whose power the eyes are able to see. Yet chakshusha pashyadi, you are not able to, by your eyes, you are not able to see. But because of his presence, only your eyes are able to see. If you take the eye and put it on a wall, it will not be able to see because there is no Andaryamin behind that. That is the idea it is trying to say. Yet chakshusha na pashyadi, yena chakshugum shivashyadi. By whom eyes are able to see. Similarly, yet chotrena na srinodi, you cannot hear Brahman saying anything, but without Brahman's power, you will not be able to hear. Similarly, yet pranayana pranadi. So all these, the teacher gives the answer in the same way. We may get a intellectual understanding of the Upanishad, but we have to continue the meditation to understand the Brahman and Atman. That is the way all these Upanishads go. And then, of course, there is a, towards the end of that in Kena Upanishad, there is a small anecdotal incident where Brahman wanted to test the Devas, because Devas are all saying, I did this, I did that. So just like human beings, the anecdote here is that Brahman wanted to say, without its power, the Devas are also not able to do anything. So the anecdote says, in the form of a yaksha, Ashiriri, someone came and said, wanted to find out who is the in charge in all those things. So the Devas send Agni first. Hey, Agni, you go and find out who is this yaksha that has come. It is in the form of an anecdote or a story, part of the Kena Upanishad, but there is a message behind. I will tell you that also as we discuss. And the yaksha puts a small blade of grass. And he asks, Agni, who are you? Agni says, I can burn anything. Then he puts a small piece of grass and asks fire to burn that. Agni tries its best, but it was not able to burn that. So it returned back. So the Devas, oh, Agni cannot do it. So let us send a Vayu. So Vayu came, and the same Yaksha said, what is your power? I can blow anything away. Is that right? Then blow this small piece of grass. Vayu tried, why he was not able to move that one. Then they said, Indra, you go and find out. And when Indra came, this Yaksha disappeared. This is all what the Kena Upanishad story in the form of anecdote it says. So what this means is that no one can see Brahman. Udadidam vinashyati. If you go near, in other words, if you try to mentally visualize however much you have the concept mentally, you will not be able to exact. And of course, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad later on will say, Brahman can only be stated as neti, neti, na iti, not this, not this. So Brahman can only be described as not this, not this. You will not be able to see because it is the all-pervading energy. You can look at it that way. That is one this thing. Then not the other way is that not even a grass, not even a small blade of grass can move without Brahman willing. And we tell you that Trinamabi will not move. A small piece of blade of grass even will not be able to move. So this is the message from the Kena Upanishad. There are very many, as you go to each of the mantras requires meditative efforts. Now I'll take two more Upanishads, Katha Upanishad and Taittiriya Upanishad, just to get a flavor of what is in the Upanishad and how Upanishads do not describe the sadhana in detail, but Upanishads give only hint for the sadhana. I'll take that after discussing these two Upanishads to the Vidyas in the Upanishads. The Katha Upanishad starts by Vajasravas was trying to perform a Vishwajit Yaga, Yajna. Vishwajit means almost the world. Vishwajit, you are becoming top of the world type thing. So by giving up everything, and his son, Nachiketas by name Nachiketas, saw his father giving away everything, and his father was giving away all the cows that cannot bear children, that cannot produce milk. So this boy, Nachiketas, wondered, well, why is my dad giving this cow as a gift? As though he had given a cow gift is considered to be one of the highest gifts dhanam you can give. So easy to get, you are going with the word, a literal word. This is not of any use to the person who receives this dana, unless you give something that the recipient will be able to enjoy. What is the use of giving a gift? So this boy asked, whom are you going to give me? Who are going to give me away? His father did not respond. So this boy persisted. Who are you going to give me away? And angered by the repeated questioning of his son, Vajasravas said, to death. Of course, immediately after he spoke, he would have felt bad. Why did I say this? Out of my anger, I should not have said this. But Nachiketas decided to go to death. Father, that is the father's command, and I want to ensure that father's command is satisfied. So he goes to see Lord of Death, Yama. And when Nachiketas arrived at Yama's abode, Yama was not there. So Nachiketas had to wait for 3 nights. Then Yama returned. So Yama said, oh, I kept you waiting. So I'll give you I kept you waiting for 3 nights for me. That is not, that's not the way I should be doing the hospitality. I should be ready to receive you. So because I delayed meeting you for 3 nights, I'll give you 3 boons. So Nachiketas asked by the first boon, when I return, my father must happily receive me. The second boon, I want to know of the fire that takes people to heaven. Then, Yama immediately granted the first boon. The second boon, also he explained the fire that takes people to the heaven. And Yama was so pleased with Nachiketas, he gave me an extra boon and named that fire as the Nachiketas fire. So that fire is known as Nachiketas fire, that will take people to heaven, those who have done good deeds. As part of this Yama Nachiketas discussion. Then the third one, Nachiketas asks, Yayam Prite Vichikitsa Manushya. When people die, I have this doubt. Yayam Prite, when persons die, I have this doubt. Asti tyege, nayam asti tyege, chaige. Asti iti ege. Asti means exists. What? Soul. So Nachiketas' question is this. Asti tyege, na ayam asti iti chaige. Some others say it exists. Some others say it does not exist. So the astika and nastika has come from these words. Asti tyege, when people die, the soul exists. Na asti iti chaige. Some others say Edad vidyam anishishtatvayaham. I want this vidya to be taught to me by you. Varastridiyo paranam. The 3 boons you have given me, this is the 3rd boon that I want to know. Because if anyone who knows, Yama knows. Whether soul exists or not, Yama is the Lord of Death. So Nachiketas asked that question. Yama tries to dissuade Nachiketas. I don't want to answer this question. Many devas don't know this answer. I'll give you so many choice items with which you can live happily. I'll give you a long life. I'll give you all the wealth. But Nachiketas was single-mindedly refusing all this. So all these dialogue are extremely interesting between Yama and Nachiketas. But then when it is found that Nachiketas will not budge, Nachiketas, Yama starts explaining. And Yama starts by simple things. He says, at every turn in your life, the road will appear as forked. You have a couple of choices. One choice will lead you, again, the Sanskrit words, you can, when you, this sloga, it will be very interesting. One path will take you to Shreyas, the other path will take you to Prayas. It's only a slight word difference, Shreyas and Prayas. Shreyas means the wealth that you get by yashas, by fame, by good deeds. Shreyas. Prayas is by material wealth and material properties. And Yama tells Nachiketas, the Dhira, they use the word Dhira. Dhi means one with intelligence. The Dhira will choose the Shreyas paths, whereas the Balas and the Mudas, Balas, the children, and the Mudas, the ignorant, will choose the Prayas path. So here is a message. So by studying these Upanishads, you will pick up ideas for how to conduct yourself also and what is important, what is not important also. So all these things will happen, but that are not the purpose of Upanishad. That is not why it is called Jnanam. Jnanam, Adi Shankara's definition is Jnani. The one who becomes a self-realized person, he is a Jnani. So that is why Jnanam. But at the same time, Upanishads, and to become a Jnani, you need to do the sadhana. But Upanishads do not describe the sadhanas. They give only hints at these sadhanas. I will come back that after covering the Taittiriya Upanishad also. So keep on going, so many aspects that is happening. Then I will come back to some hints that are given in the various Upanishads. Then I will take briefly Taittiriya Upanishad also. Then I will discuss a few Vidyas in the remaining time. Taittiriya Upanishad has 3 sections. Taittiriya Upanishad is part of the Taittiriya Aranyaka. The 7, 8, 9 prashnas are the Taittiriya Upanishads, and it has 3 sections: Shikshavalli, Brahmanandavalli, and Bhriguvalli. Shikshavalli deals with phonetics of chanting, Avahanti mantras. Many excellent passages are there. For example, in the Shikshambya Akya Syamaha Varnaswaraha Matrabalam Samasandanaha. So these 6 aspects you should take care of before you learn chanting. Varnam, the character; the swaram, the swara of the mantra; matra, the duration; balam, the force; samam, the modulation; sandana, sandhi. So all these aspects, how the words are combined, how the words are modulated, that is in the Shikshavalli. Then it talks about Avahanti Homa, Yachandasam Rishabho Vishwarupaha. Lot of interesting things. Samendro Medaya Aspranodu. O Indra, sprinkle me with intelligence. Mama Gavascha, provide shelter for my thinking. Annapane cha sarvada. I never go hungry. There is enough to eat. Then it says, Tato me sviyamavaha. So you request all these things, and then at the end you say, Sri, you give me the wealth of the wealth, because someone who is not have intelligence, if they get wealth, they will misuse the wealth. So for you able to do it, you need to have. So every lesson in every Anuvaga in the Shikshavalli gives you suggestions how to conduct yourself in a better way. Then finally, Vedamanuchajaryon Devasinamanusasti. After teaching Vedas, the student who lives with the teacher inside, that teacher gives the instructions to them. What are the instructions? The top 2 instructions. They say don't go and make a big wealth and all those things. What are they saying? Satyam vada, dharmam chara. Satyam vada, tell the truth. Walk the path of righteousness. So it goes on. Then what are the things? What is should be avoided? What should be done? Teacher gives. This is in Shikshavalli. Then Brahmanandavalli. Brahmavida apnoti param. So once you know Brahma, then you have reached the supreme state, and it keeps on everything. And in the Brahmanandavalli, it talks about the 5 koshas. Kosha or sheath. This human, we see the external sheath, our body sheath only. But what they say, what is the outer sheath is called the Annamaya Kosha. It is made of food. Then interior to that, there is Pranamaya Kosha. a sheet of, it says, Tenaisha Purna. The Pranamaya Kosha also, it is not prana just going through the nose. It says there is a sheet as the same size as your Annamaya Kosha, same dimensions and everything as your. In the same way, there is an inner kosha, that is Pranamaya Kosha. Then inner to that is the Manomaya Kosha. Then Vijnanamaya Kosha. Then Anandamaya Kosha. The Panja Kosha description are provided. I will come back with the Vedas, from where the Veda, how is able to connect that in my 6th or 7th lecture. But the Panchakosha is one of the very important description of how the different layers, different aspects of our body, how we have to pay attention to all that. It is not the external body alone, the Annamaya Kosha alone that you need to do. And each interior kosha knows more. Like the Annamaya Kosha, the body may not know what the mind is thinking, but the mind knows what is happening to your body. In the same manner, students have asked the question, just like the mind knows the Annamaya Kosha, is there anybody in detail behind? So all these in the Panchakosha comes, and we will come back to in the Veda, the Saptakosha, it becomes Panchakosha. I will describe it later. This is shown in figure 3 in my book. We saw the figure 1 in second lecture, figure 2 in third lecture. In this fourth lecture, the figure 3, the Panchakosha is described. Then in the third section of Taittiriya Upanishad, Bhriguvalli, Bhrigurvai Varuni, Pitaramupasasara, Bhrigu, son of Varuna, went to his father and asked, Bhrigurvai Varune Varunam Pitaramupasasara, Adihi Bhagavo Brahmeti, please instruct me what is Brahman. So here is a boy, Bhrigu, going and asking his father, Adihi Bhagavo, O Bhagavan, Brahmeti, instruct me about Brahma. Tasmat Provaja Annam Pranam Chakshusrotram Mano Vachamiti. He identified that this Annam Pranam Mana Chakshusrotram, all these things. Tagumho Vaja Yato Va Imani Bhutani Jayante, by which all these living beings are getting born. Yena Jatani Jivanti, having been born, by which they live, sustain. Yat Prayanti Abhisambhishanti. Then where do they go at the end? Tad vijijnasasva. You try to understand that. Tad brahmeti. So, Bhrigu asks this question to Varuna. Adihi Bhagavo Brahmeti. Oh Brahman, Adi Bhagavan, oh Dad, tell me what is Brahman. Then he first says, Annam Pranam Chakshusrotram Mano Vachamiti. Then Tagumho Vaja, Yato Va Imani Bhutani Jayanti, Yena Jatani Jivanti, Yat Prayanti Abhisambhishanti, Tat Vijijnasasva, Tat Brahmeti. Once you understand how the beings are born, how they live, where they go to end, if you understand, that is Brahma. That is Brahman. Then he comes, Annam Brahmeti Bhajanat. So Varuna goes to, Bhrigu goes to meditation and spending how many years? We don't know. Oh, he found out, oh, this is what that may be meaning. Annam. Annam Brahmeti Bhajanat. Annam is the Brahman, Annadyeva kalvivani bhutani jayante, annena jadani jivanti, annam prayanti abhisandishanti. That was the conclusion. Then he comes to, it goes on like that. Annam, the same Panchagosha that we described. After says Annam, oh, I found out. Yeah, this is what you meant, right? Then Varuna again describes, go and do tapas, then find out Brahman. Then he comes back, says, Prano Brahmeti Vajana. That is regularly. So all these things, when we study, we feel that we are getting knowledge, we are understanding. But this will not, these are all intellectual understandings, which is needed. That is the first step. But we need to move into the, we move to actually experience this, the sadhana. And Upanishads do not describe the sadhana. Upanishads provide only the hints to sadhana. So the hints to sadhana are where we find and all that. I will first take the case of I'll take the case of Katha Upanishad. While we listen to the dialogue between Nachiketas and Yama, so in all these four Upanishads, I discussed just to give a flavor of what is discussed in the Upanishads, the lofty ideals. I have explained that. Now I want to connect with, starting with the messaging. As part of the messaging, we said, Adi Shankara said, Jnanam comes only from Upanishad. What he means is, one who becomes a self-realized person, Jnani, that is where the Jnanam. But because Jnanam we can translate English into knowledge, these are all coming from our wrong messaging. I want to get Jnanam, I'm studying Upanishad. But these intellectual understandings, academic understandings, that is what is the content of the Upanishads. And they give few hints. And I will try to say, what are the hints and how to go about the Vidya. From the Vidya, so what are the Vidyas? And I also said at the beginning, there are about 32 or 37 Vidyas. Chandogya Upanishad has a lot of Vidyas. The Katha Upanishad, Taittiriya Upanishad, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, all of them contain hints, all of them contain statements of Vidya. So I will point out a couple of them. Now, in the Katha Upanishad, I'll take a couple of mantras. I said the dialogue between Nachiketas and Yama and all that, but I'll take another. Edadevaksharam Brahma, Edadevaksharam Param, Edadevaksharam Jnatva, Yo Mohati Tasya Tat. This is one. Edadevaksharam, after describing Om, Om stands for Brahman. Yama tells Nachiketas, Edadyeva Aksharam Brahma, this Aksharam Om is Brahma. Edadyeva Aksharam Param, that is Parabrahma. So in the first line itself, there is Brahma and Parabrahma. And how does Upanishad Edadevaksharam Jnatva, understanding this letter Om, Idichasi Tasya Tat. So in the first line it says Edadevaksharam Brahma, Edadevaksharam Param. So this meditation on Om can get you, what does a Brahma, again Upanishad teachers say, that is lower Brahman or Hiranyagarbha. The Param Brahman is the Supreme Brahman. So this is what in one of our earlier classes I said, Rig Veda does not talk about moksha. Rig Veda, the whole Veda, does not talk about moksha. Veda talks about leading a happy life with enjoyment, harmonious life. So, whereas Upanishads talk about moksha, and the jnanam is associated with the moksha. One becomes self-realized, becomes a jnani. So you need to connect all that. It's not just any knowledge. Say, I want to get some knowledge, so I am going to Upanishad. No. Unless you have a burning desire for liberation, the study and practice is all intended. Upanishads are intended to give that. So what Upanishad teachers say, lower Brahman or Hiranyagarbhan, and they say Hiranyagarbha, that is what you get from Vedas. If you want the supreme Brahman, this understanding this Om, you can get. If you desire the lower Brahman, you can get the lower Brahman. If you desire the Param Brahman, you will get. That is the meaning of that one sentence. How do you can hear it if the Yama says, we take it as true, but we are not able to understand it. How meditating on the same Om, Upanishad says, Yadichasi tasyatat. What you wish for, you can get that. So if you want a Hiranyagarbhan, so you can ask, why would one want Hiranyagarbhan? Why not you go? Each has difficulties involved. All these are contained in that one statement. That is a hint. There is no sadhana. You can just say you go meditate on Om, but that's not. But that is only a hint. That's a vidya. In the same manner, the Yama also tells Nachiketas, na ayam atma na lebhyaha na medaya na ayam atma na ayam atma Nayam atma pravachanena lebhyaha. By discussing or explaining or teaching about this Brahman, this Atman you cannot realize. Na medhaya, not by your intelligence. Na bahuna sutena. You hear many times. You will not be able to get it. Na ayam atma pravachanena lebhyaha. Pravachanena na lebhyaha. By explaining, understanding, teaching, this Atman is not available. Na medaya. By intellectually grasping it, you will not get a Brahman. Na bahuda strutena. Or you heard many times. Of course, Brihadaranyupanishad also says, Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam. Even some of this language itself to get understanding is difficult. What does that mean? Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam. Shravanam is hearing. Mananam. You see, we also say, are you listening? Or just hearing what I am saying? Listening means you have to pay attention. That is the Mananam. Nididhyasanam. Have you internalized it? So, even though Brihadaranyupanishad says, Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam will help you, which is all the same stages that we say, hearing, listening, detailed understanding, internalizing. So these three. But unless we totally do the fully involved in the sadhana and the vidya, and so there are hints given in the Upanishad itself, but we just gloss over. We are interested to understand the story-like parts and all that. Such a study will not benefit us. We must follow the Vidyas. And T.V. Kapali Shastri, those who want to, who are all, many of you have taken Vedanta courses, if you want to get into the steps of Vidyas and from the sadhana, I said, Upanishads are guide to sadhanas. Upanishads give hint to do the sadhana. They are called Vidyas. There are about 37 Vidyas. Kapali Shastri, who I talked about in the context of, he's a great Vedic scholar in the context of the Aurobindo Kapali Shastri Kashyap lineage, who have made the spiritual meanings made available. Kapali Shastri has written a book, Light on Upanishads. In his collected works, which was published by Aurobindo Ashram, Madhav Pandit was a student of Kapali Shastri, and he has published Kapali Shastri's collected works. But Sakshi has republished that in 2004 also. Professor Kashyap has edited and republished that. I encourage you to, all the Vedantins, to study that, where Kapali Shastri has discussed 6 Vidyas. Naga, how many questions you have?
5 or 6 questions.
Okay, so another 5 minutes also. So Kapali Shastri has written a book, Light on Upanishads, which is republished by Sakshi. And in that one, Kapali Shastri has discussed 6 Vidyas: the Bhuma Vidya, Prana Vidya, Vaishwanara Vidya, Prana Vidya, Vaishwanara Vidya from Chandogya Upanishad, from the Katha Upanishad, he has discussed one Vidya, then he has discussed Madhu Vidya. So that book is available from Sakshi, Light on Upanishads. So we will do that. I will explain what the Katha Upanishad says. I discussed about Nachiketas. The Yama and Vajasrava said, I am going to give you to death. So Nachiketas went to abode of death, and because he had to wait for 3 nights, Yama gave him 3 boons. By the first boon, I want to, my father must, what was the first boon? First boon was, when I go back, my father must receive me gladly. That was the first boon, and Yama granted. So Kapali Shastri says in this Light on Upanishads book that if you have not understood the first boon, how did Nachiketas, when his father said, I'm going to give you to death, how did Nachiketas get to the place Yama? How is he asking the question, when I go back to my father, so if Yama is not in Orange County or New York or somewhere, Yama is in some higher consciousness level, higher loga. That is our understanding. All the devas are in there. I said that there are Sapta Dhamamihi, there are 7 Dhamas: Bhuhu, Bhuvaha, Suvaha, Mahaha, Janaha, Tapaha, Satyam. And it is in the Satya Loka where Tadegam and all the devas, I'm sure Yamas and the mantras, everything reside. So how did Nachiketas, if Vajasrava was doing all this in the Bhuloka, how did Nachiketas get from there to Yama? And how is Nachiketas asking one of the boons when he comes back to his father that he should be received gladly? So Kapali Shastri says, if you have not understood the first boon, no need to study further the Katha Upanishad. That is what Kapali Shastri says. So that shows the complexity and difficulty of doing, but studying these Vidyas. So I want to close this chapter 5. I will discuss chapter 6 in the next class. The messaging issues of Karmakanda and Jnanakanda has thrown us all in various conclusions, but we must understand each of these words. Where does this word come? But today there is no one treats Brahmanas as a head of Samhitas. So Samhita stands by itself. So there are spiritual meanings available. So it has wisdom. That is, in fact, I have subtitled my book saying, highlighting the spirituality and wisdom in the Vedas, which is what we'll be seeing from not next class, from the class on 31st onwards. Next class, I will cover chapter 6. That will cover the part 1 of this. So with this, so the messaging issues, we must understand whenever word, because the Sanskrit words, we are not able to find out the exact English. Jnanam can be translated as knowledge. They are knowledge, but Jnanam goes much beyond knowledge. Jnanam refers to getting to become self-realized. So in a sense, we can even say Jnanam is binary. Either you take all your efforts and you become a jnani, then you get the binary 1. Otherwise, we all end up at the binary 0 level. So these are all very difficult. Upanishads, the Vidyas, the sadhanas, the meditation, so much more involved. So we must not think that studying Vedas are difficult. And it is all one continuous. In chapter 5, I say that Veda, the ideas contained in the Upanishads are a continuous, an extension of the ideas in the Vedas. So with this understanding, study Vedas first and then study Upanishads. That is the message that I convey by the book, chapter 5. And that is the way with which I want to close this lecture. Naga.
Good questions?
Yes, questions. We go to questions now.
The first one is from Raj G. Kumar. He asked, can you please tell me between Jnanam and Bhakti, which is more important? Are they one and same?
The question is between Jnanam and Bhakti, which is more important? Now, we cannot emphasize the importance. All of them take you to the same destination. The destination being the moksha is the concept. But again, that is not a concept in the Vedas. Vedas only ask you to lead a happy, harmonious life with enjoyment and leading a dharmic life by which you rise in consciousness level. You try to do your task with increased levels of perfection. And ultimately, whether in this birth or after many births, you attain the Saptadhama, the 7th world, where Tadegam, Devas, and you end up there and you live there with a triple immortality. That is the message of the Vedas. But in the Vedantic concept, and we have, of course, Bhagavad Gita that I will be discussing in the, and our current practices, there are some Bhagavad Gita lectures, slokas also I will take in the next class. So there are Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and all that. These are all different paths. One is more suited to some people, the more intellectual in nature one is, then Jnana Marg is there. Every one of them, none of them is easy. I had a question, if you look at the question answer of the last class, I have responded, is Jnana an easy way? None of them is easy because we have got to remove all impurities, and that is what then the self will reveal itself. Self is now covered with full of our dasyus, the Shad Ribhus, Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Madamatsarya, all these things. So unless we are able to remove them, and we cannot just by willing, it will not go. When you are happy, it may not be coming with you, but other times, we all of us have the Ribhus. So only when you live in the self, when we become pure, then self reveals itself. So both are, all paths are difficult, but one is suited for certain people more than the other. Next one.
There are a few questions from KJISL Ashok.
Yes.
The first one is, by performing yajnas, personal effort towards achieving all-round perfection is more effortless.
The question is, by performing yajna, the personal effort
towards achieving all-round perfection.
The personal effort towards achieving all-round
perfection, does it become more effortless?
So, the broad, I will try to answer like this, namely that performance of yajna, please wait until the next class when I talk about yajna. So I will cover this in a more detail. But we have to do yajna. There are so many purposes. And your final conclusion of the question, yes, you get to by doing yajna and by listening to Veda mantras and practicing this dharmic life, you rise in consciousness levels and you get to do your tasks with higher levels of perfection than when you were doing without this help, with this additional help. I will answer that. Yes.
The next question is, Shankaracharya ultimately reveals that the devotion to Narayana, Bhaja Govindam, is the ultimate path to moksha. Is this true?
The second question is, devotion to Narayana is the ultimate path to moksha. Shankaracharya says in Bhaja Govindam. Shankara has given a lot of advice in the form of slokas also. So I will take that as one of them. But Adi Shankara was, as a child, he is ready to become ready for moksha. So that is why he left at a very early age that we know. And so that is one of the many things. He says, Kanagara Sotra, so many slota, and are there. So these are all helpful things. But he says self-realization, jnanam, and the self has got to reveal itself to you. That is the jnani that Adi Shankara refers, in my opinion.
The next question from Ashok is, what does performing sadhana mean? Performing the yajnas on a regular basis, reciting the mantras, or simply meditating on God?
Sadhana is, no, you have to study this. Sadhana is different from, sadhana may include many things like meditation. You see, Upanishads, Upanishads contain lofty ideas. Upanishads are philosophical texts. Upanishads do not give details of the sadhana. By studying Upanishads, you are able to get to the intellectual understanding of Brahman, Atman, Prana, many concepts. But Upanishadic seers have said that is not enough. You have to realize them. And the realization is done by sadhana. And sadhana is not yajna. Sadhana is by meditation and by trying to understand by yourself. We know the case of Ramana Maharshi. How many years after leaving high school, or a high school boy, how many years he did penance at solo penance in Tirunamalai? So that meditative, single-minded, and study the 4 prerequisites that I have written in my book, that is quoted from Chinmaya's Vivek Chudamani book. I quoted those 4 prerequisites. It is your burning desire for liberation. So the sadhana is in the direction of becoming a moksha. Yajna is different. Veda and Yajna have come together. This chapter, in many sense, is only to cover the Vedanta aspects of the moksha, the current concept, when the moksha came into. It is not part of the Rig Veda. The Rig Veda tells us only, after this Upanishad class, I am not, I wanted to have an idea that all of us must understand the Upanishads also. There are so many valuable lessons we can understand and learn. But Upanishads are a guide to sadhana. It does not describe the sadhanas. It gives few hints. Like, for example, the Bhrigu, he went and says, Annam Brahmedi Byajanat. So between Varuna telling him, go and find out where it is, how many years Bhrigu spent, we do not know. We cannot simply accept Annam Brahmedi Byajanat. That same question you and I also face this, but that has got to be done by meditation and the sadhana. Sadhana, meditation is one of the parts, but you need to understand the vidya. That is a hint. From there, you need to perform the sadhana. Is a rigorous meditation and single-minded, focused meditation. So many things we can put. It is the way to get action. Sadhana is a very broad term. It has nothing to do with the yajna.
A couple of questions from Ramesh Deshpande. All Upanishads are linked to specific Vedas. For example, Taittiriya is linked to Yajurveda, Chandogya is linked to Samaveda, Atharva Shir with Atharva Veda. What is the rationale for linking specific Upanishads to specific Vedas?
Ramesh Deshpande's question is for example, the Dasha Upanishads, some of them are, all of them are tied to either Upanishad is tied to Rig Veda, Chandogya Upanishad, Sama Veda, the Mandukya Upanishad, Mandukya and Prashna connected with Atharva Veda. So all these Upanishads are tied to different one. What is, how these Upanishads are connected to different Veda? The only thing I can think of are the rishis pertaining to those Vedas, or the Veda was amenable to, say, for example, if you take Ishavasya Upanishad, it is the 40th chapter of the Shukla Yajurveda. So it automatically follows that Ishavasya Upanishad is belonging to Shukla Yajurveda, because it is taken from the Veda. Whether they meditated on a particular Veda and it was evolved, but it is all in the Brahmana. The Brahmana is also associated with each Veda. They are trying to, you see, all these Veda mantras were together during the Rishi period. But once Vedavyasa classified it, again, according to our understanding, about 3000 BC or 3100 BCE, once Vedavyasa classified that, each Veda was being studied and followed by a group of people. The whole purpose is memorizing all 4 Vedas will be difficult. So there are 4 leaders were assigned, Paila, Sumantu, Jaimini, Vaishambhayana, for each of these Vedas. So their people, all those following that, so they were concentrating to get the meaning of the Rig Veda. So there is a Rig Veda Brahmana, either a Brahmana and either a Upanishad, everything. So that is the only way this Upanishads became, but that does not have much impact. But all of them are trying to get to the same essence of the Veda mantra.
Next one is Nandakishore Kirtikar. In your book, figure 3, 5 koshas of human existence, Taittiriya Upanishad, shows Atman as the inner part of the body. As I understand that when a person dies, his or her body leaves, but Atman remains, so body lives in Atman or soul. Is it the other way around? Would you explain?
What is it? What is it?
So in your book, okay, in your book.
Yeah, there is a dot at the center. I have shown in that one. That is definitely generally not shown. By put a dot, a bindu at the center of the Anandamaya Kosha. That as to saying as the Atman. Say, of course, in fact, the Narayana Saktam, Tasyante Sushiragam Sukshmam Tasmin Sarvam Pradishtidam. There is a very, very small hole where it is describing the Hridayam, and Tasyante, at the end of it, there is a Sushiragam Sukshmam, a subtle hole, Sushiram. Tasmin Sarvam Pradishtidam. That is where everything is established. So just to establish that, I just put a dot on the figure. So what is the question, Naga?
So the question is, so Taittiriya Upanishad shows soul or Atman as the innermost part of the body. As I understand that when a person dies, his body leaves, but Atman remains. So body lives in Atman or soul.
No, the body is the Atman. See, all the Upanishads say that the Tadegam or Brahman wanted to create the many. So he entered into that. So he enters, and once that leaves, then the body becomes inert. So the Atman comes inside, and when the time goes, when the Vasamsi Jirnani Yada Vihaya, when this body is found, it cannot, there is nothing this body can sustain that, then Atman leaves, whichever way you can look at it. But Atman, it enters into the body. Of course, the question is, conception and how all those, we cannot, I don't know, we cannot get into that aspect.
There are more questions from our.
Yeah, there are more questions. Our time is over. I'm almost half a minute about to close. So I will close this with closing prayers. And next class, I will take chapter 6 and the whole 1 through 6 I will review. So that will complete our part 1, that is on 24th. Then 31st onwards. So 4 classes for part 1, 6 classes for part 2, 1 the overview lecture, and we have a last class that I will use for review and all that. That is the overall plan. So with this, I close today's lecture with a conclusion. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritangamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah. Sarve Santu Niramayah. Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu. Ma Kaschit Dukkhabhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.